The Overlook Hotel is an outlying hotel in Colorado which employs a caretaker every winter. Jack Torrance is the caretaker for this year's winter. He is a former teacher and a writer, therefore he sees this job opportunity as perfect to get him more time for a new project he's working on. He is married to Wendy and they both have a lovely son, Danny, who sees visions and has a little friend in his mouth, named Tony. He talks to him from time to time. At the interview, the manager briefs Jack on the downsides of this job. The sense of isolation which led the previous caretaker to kill his family, that's 2 daughters and his wife, with an axe. He packed the bodies neatly in one of the rooms and killed himself afterwards. Jack is fascinated about what he just heard and assures them nothing of that sort is going to happen. In Denver, Danny sees a vision about the Overlook Hotel where a room is flooded and 2 girls in the same dress, holding hands. He wakes up to a doctor by his side, inquiring about what happened before he fell, but he remembers nothing. The doctor then has a conversation with Wendy where she reveals Jack was once an alcoholic and even injured Danny one time when he was drunk. Since then, he's been sober for 5 months now. Jack arrives at the hotel with his family. The manager shows them around and introduces them to Dick Halloran, the head chef. Dick shows Wendy the kitchen, the walk-in freezer, which contains every meat they'll ever crave for. Wendy notices that Dick keeps calling Danny as Doc, a name only his parents use for him. Dick brushes the matter off, saying Danny looks like a doc anyway. He then shows them the pantry where there are a variety of foods which will last more than their stay. There, Danny hears Dick's voice in his head asking him if he wants some ice cream. Just when they get out of the pantry, Dick asks Danny to go with him to grab some ice cream. When Dick is alone with Danny, he explains to him what he hears and sees and assures him it's normal. He again tells him he isn't the only one that has this shining. Danny then feels a little bit comfortable around him and tells him about the little boy that tells him about things. Dick becomes curious and asks him if Tony ever told him anything about the hotel, but as usual, he doesn't remember. Dick finally warns him never to enter room 237 no matter what happens. A month later, the family is gradually getting used to their new home. Danny is always riding his tricycle around the hotel. Wendy is either in the kitchen or serving Jack, while Jack works on his writing project. While the weather looks bright and sunny, Wendy takes Danny on a walk in the maze outside the hotel. Wendy is cooking a meal when she hears on the news that a snowstorm is gradually approaching Colorado. Meanwhile, Danny is riding his vehicle and comes across room 237. Though he had been warned earlier to never go into the room, he enters without hesitation to see for himself what is in there, but luckily, the door is locked. Jack starts acting weird and asks his wife not to come close when she sees him working. Jack watches Wendy and Danny play in the snow, with an evil smile on his face. He looks possessed. Wendy manages to call and inquire about why their telephones are not working anymore. She finds out that the snowstorm is causing all that to happen. One day, while Danny is riding his tricycle, he meets the 2 girls who got killed by their dad. The pretty-looking girls later change into the bodies their dad left them in, with blood all over them and an axe by their side. Little Danny, who is frightened right now, calls on his friend, Tony, who reassures him not to be afraid because they aren't real. Another time, while he is playing with his trucks, a ball rolls out of room 237 towards him. He walks towards it, finds the door opened and enters. At that same time, Wendy hears screams coming from the living room while she was in the basement. She runs towards the sound and wakes Jack up from his nightmare. He saw himself killing his wife and son and later chopping his wife in pieces. As she helps him back to his chair, she sees Danny walking slowly to them with his clothes torn and bruises on his neck. Since Danny doesn't respond to any of her questions on what happened to him, she doesn't even think twice and blames Jack for Danny's bruises. Jack sits in the chair confused and then heads to the gold room. He turns on the lights and walks straight to the bar. His thirst for alcohol is back. He even wishes to commit his soul to it if the need arises. As soon as he opens his eyes, he sees the bartender right in front of him and mentions his name Lloyd without him introducing himself. The bartender also seems to know Jack already. He serves him a drink and they both have a conversation where Jack says he really loves his son so much that he doesn't understand why Wendy is accusing him, and for that reason he'll do something to her to pay her back for the false accusation. Soon, Wendy joins him in the room with a bat in her hands. She goes on to say they're not the only ones in the hotel. Danny told her a woman in room 237 did that to him. At that same time, Dick is at his home watching TV when he sees a vision about what's happening in the hotel. Jack enters the room alone and sees a beautiful lady in the bathtub. He is carried away by the lady's beauty, so he kisses her. After some time, he opens his eyes only to see the beautiful lady turn into an old lady with rotten skin. He immediately runs out of the room and locks it. Going back to his room, he tells his wife there's no one in the room. Wendy thinks he might have gone to a different room, but he still insists he went inside. Jack tells his wife Danny gave himself the bruises, but she isn't convinced. Danny is lying on his bed when he sees Redrum written in red ink on the door. Wendy tells Jack they have to leave the hotel because of Danny's health, but he loses it and pours his anger on her for not considering the project he's working on. He walks out on her, taking out his anger on the utensils. As he walks around the hotel, he hears noises and later comes across decorations in the hallway. However, Dick is also trying his best to hear from Danny and his parents. Back at the hotel, Jack enters the gold room again, but this time a party is ongoing. He walks to the bar and takes a drink from Lloyd and dances around. A valet accidentally pours the drink he's carrying on his clothes and offers to help him clean it in the washroom. As the valet is cleaning the mess, Jack proceeds to ask what his name is. He says he is Delbert Grady. Jack thinks he has heard of the name from somewhere. He then remembers the story of the caretaker who killed his wife and kids in the hotel. He also bore the same name. Grady denies being a caretaker in the hotel and rather feeds him information about his son's shine, which he's using to bring an outsider into their business. The outsider here is Dick. He then uses himself as an example. He says he corrected one of his girls when she was trying to burn down the hotel, and when his wife was interfering, he corrected her too. Wendy is in her room planning on an escape with Danny when she hears him repeating the Redrum over and over again. Jack hears the messages from the radio trying to reach them and destroys it completely. The next day, Dick takes a flight to Colorado to rescue Danny and his family. At the airport, he calls a friend who lends him a snowcat. Wendy leaves Danny in the room to go after Jack and tell him she will go with Danny alone if he wishes to still stay in the hotel. She doesn't find him in his spot, so she takes the chance to go through his work. It shocks her when the only thing she sees is all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy written in many folds. Jack scares her and immediately, she picks up the bat to protect herself. At this point she's convinced Jack has gone completely insane. Wendy tries pushing Jack away, but he continues following her, asking her to hand him the bat. She hits him on his hand and then his head. Jack rolls down the stairs and lies unconscious on the floor. Wendy pulls him into the pantry and locks him up. At least he has food to last him till the hotel resumes operation. He starts pleading with Wendy to let him out and that if she does, he'll forget everything that happened and live like how they were before. Wendy then goes to prepare the snowcat and leave with Danny. It is freezing cold outside, but she still makes it to the snowcat and discovers that Jack has destroyed it. Jack is lying on the sacks when he hears a knock on the door. It's Grady. He's disappointed that Jack couldn't carry out a simple plan. Jack tells him he'll do as he says if he lets him out, and surely Grady unlocks the door. Dick is almost at the hotel. It's nighttime, but Danny won't stop chanting the Redrum word. He takes his mom's red lipstick and writes Redrum on the door. He then stands in front of Wendy and loudly chants Redrum. Redrum, awakening her from her sleep. She hugs Danny and sees in the mirror that the strange word is actually murder written backwards. Just then, Jack starts breaking the door to their room with an axe. Wendy takes Danny to the bathroom and pushes him outside through the window. She tries to escape too, but her body is too big for the window. Jack breaks into the first door and boldly walks up to the bathroom door and breaks it too. When he sticks his hand into the room to open the lock, Wendy cuts him. His attention moves from Wendy to the sound of the snowcat he's hearing. Danny runs back into the hotel and hides himself in the kitchen. Jack sees Dick entering the hotel and hides behind a pillar. He waits for him to walk towards his direction and chips the axe into his heart. He then moves forward to look for Danny. Wendy also goes around searching for him too. When Danny runs out of the hotel into the maze, Jack runs after him too. Danny notices his dad is following his footprints, so he steps back and fills up the leading footprint. When he sees that Jack has lost him, he gets out of his hiding place and finds his way out of the maze. Wendy comes out of the hotel and sees Danny running out of the maze. She puts him into Dick's snowcat and drives away. Jack is still in the maze looking for Danny. He sits down to have some rest and he becomes frozen. At the end of the movie, old photos of a ball hanging in the hotel are shown. Jack is seen smiling in one of them, dated July 4, 1921. Has he been reincarnated into the Jack we saw? Or is it the same Jack that never ages?